supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to The Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast designed to support you, the dog parent, in your dog parenting journey. And today we're going to talk about one of my second favourite topics when it especially comes to new puppy owners, but actually it applies to everybody. There's two things that I find are probably the things that people misunderstand the most. And that's why I'm going to talk about them. The first one is puppy biting, which we've done a podcast episode on previously, and I've actually written a book about, the Practical Guide to Puppy Biting, because it was something I found that was really misunderstood by new puppy owners. And the second thing is what we're going to talk about today. And it's something that we don't realise we actually create. We create the problem, and it's not until we stop and look at it that we go, oh yeah. So that's why we're going to talk about it today. And it's probably something I should write a book on. Maybe I'll add that to the to-do list, ever-growing to-do list. And it's all about dogs stealing things in your house and not wanting to give them back. Now, hands up if that has been a situation that you have encountered where your dog has stolen an item and they refuse to bring it back to you for whatever reason. You get into this big battle of trying to get it off of them. I can honestly say I've never had that situation at home. And whether this is, and I never know, it's like a chicken and egg situation. You don't know which one's come first. I don't actually know whether I've consciously made the effort to do these things or whether it was instinctive or I've read it somewhere. I honestly don't remember, because these things are just ingrained in my brain now that I don't remember when I first started thinking about them, if that makes sense. So generally what happens is that puppies pick stuff up because that's what puppies do. They like to steal stuff. They like to explore. I always find they're a little bit like toddlers. Toddlers reach out and touch everything with their hands, don't they? And they want to touch things. Puppies just want to put everything in their mouth. Everything needs to go in my mouth. I want to feel it, taste it, especially if you've got a breed that is hardwired to pick stuff up. So generally your gun dog breeds, it is in their nature to pick stuff up and put it in their mouth. So that is one of the big areas that I find people struggle with. So what happens generally is you get a new puppy. As I said, toddlers pick everything up. Puppies put everything in their mouth. They pick stuff up. And our natural reaction, majority of people go, oh, they shouldn't have that. And they desperately run over to their puppy trying to take items off of them, prizing open their mouth and pulling it out. Now, in our heads, we go, that is dangerous. We must protect our puppy. Or I don't want them to chew that. I don't want them to swallow it, whatever. So we're acting, of course, in the puppy's best interest. We're thinking we're doing the right thing by going, I must keep them safe and therefore get this thing off of them immediately. But in a roundabout way, our actions actually create issue. I always liken it, I always say to my dogs, treasure. If they pick something up, I'm like, wow, you've got treasure. Because to my dog in that moment in time, it is the best thing in the world, especially having Labradors, retrieving breeds. They pick stuff up, they feel happy, they wiggle their tail and they're happy about it. To them, it is the best thing in the world. It's internally reinforcing because it's what they've been bred to do. So it feels good to have stuff in your mouth and to carry it around. I'd liken it as treasure. So imagine your puppy or your dog has picked something up, they've found something. They're like, wow, this is the best thing in the world. And then we instantly go in and grab it. They're like, hey, that was my treasure. We take it off of them. We hide it. We put it in a cupboard. We put it in the bin. We put it in our pocket and go, no, you can't have that. So naturally, our puppies then go, well, when I pick up treasure, I'm not going to go near my human because they're going to take it off of me. Or some puppies go, if it's edible, or something that could potentially be edible, some puppies think, oh, it must be valuable. It could be food. I'll start ingesting it. And then obviously that's where you get dogs that will pick stuff up and start chewing things like eating socks or what have you, because they think, oh, I must get rid of it quickly before my human picks it up. And we've then got, obviously, when we go and try and prise it out of their mouth, a lot of dogs start to feel uncomfortable. They tell us, I don't like this. And they in future then start to growl at you, or are not happy because I don't want you to put your hands in my mouth again. Didn't like it. So it sounds, and it's not until you stop and think about it, you go, yeah, probably I've done that in the past. We don't realise, but we actually create the situation. So we create the situation where our dogs go, this is mine, you can't have it because you always take my treasure away from me. You then try and move towards me, so I'll run away from you. And we inadvertently create this wonderful game of chase where some dogs will then pick up items going, if I pick this up, they're going to chase me around the garden. That's fun. And we don't realise we actually then create a game. We then can create resource guarding issues because of how we take it off of them. They go, this is mine, I don't want you to have it. And generally speaking, we blame the dog for all that stuff. We go, my dog just keeps picking stuff up and carrying it around. My dog eats stuff. My dog resource guards their toys or what have you. We don't realise, obviously not always, because some dogs have those traits sort of hardwired into them and it's part of their character and their makeup. But 90% of the time, I would say, is probably something the human has done to create a situation that then has a knock-on effect that we just don't realise. So how we handle stealing items is incredibly important from puppy days. And obviously if you've got a rescue dog or an older dog, you can't go back and change puppy days. So don't beat yourself up over it, because you can't go back and change it. But if you ever have another puppy, you can do things slightly differently the next time round. But we can't go back and change it. But if you have got a new puppy, you can start as you mean to go on. So we can look at two different perspectives, whether we're going to prevent the problem or what to do if we actually have the problem. As always, this advice or topics we talk about in the podcast, it's not a replacement for actual training. We're more talking about concepts and ideas. So if you have an issue with this, especially when it comes to resource guarding toys, you need to seek professional advice from a trainer, from a behaviourist who is actually seeing you and your dog, because we talk on the podcast in general topics, general ideas, but it's very individual to each dog. And obviously we don't know that until we actually meet the dog. A lot of people ask us for advice, and until we've seen behaviours, whether it by video on our online coaching clients, or whether it's in person, we can't actually say yes or no or this or that, because it so much depends on the individual. So if this is an issue for you, do reach out to a professional to have individual support with it. Obviously the podcast is just information, top tips, looking at an idea. So obviously you think of your cute little puppy, naturally our job is to keep them safe. They do pick up everything. How, first of all, can we avoid it becoming an issue? Control and management. So control and management is where we put in place things that stop a situation from happening or stop a situation from being rehearsed. So simple things, control and management is like having a stair gate on your stairs to stop your dog going upstairs. Rather than constantly saying to them, why are you upstairs, telling them off for being upstairs, you simply put a stair gate on the bottom and go, you can't do it. So they never learn that going upstairs is fun. You shut your front door so they can't run out into the road. It's when you stop and break it down, control and management is in every part of our life. We put them on a lead to avoid them walking in the road. We keep them on a long line to avoid them running off if their recall's not good. With stealing things they shouldn't, think of it as, how can I, the control and management, how can I stop them doing it? It's really quite simple. Tidy up. I'm not saying you're messy at all, but just think to yourself, the stuff I don't want my dog or my puppy to actually grab and take, I will keep it out of their reach. Now, obviously, we're always, no one's perfect. We're always going to leave stuff lying around, especially if you've got young kids who don't do tidying. But think of the things that are dangerous to your dog. Let's keep them out of reach. And, things like, the common one is a TV remote, right? Every dog's stolen the TV remote at one time in their life, I'm sure. Or every owner has had a dog that's done it. Personally, again, mine haven't. I don't think. I think one of them picked it up once, mistaking it for a chew toy, but they didn't actually chew it. They just gave it back to me, I think. Anyway, I might be wrong. So many dogs, so many memories, I don't remember. But things like the TV remote that have batteries in, of course we're going to keep it out of our dog's reach. If we leave it on the coffee table and then go, oh, my dog keeps stealing it, we're kind of setting up the situation, aren't we? If we're always leaving stuff in their reach and then moaning at them for taking it, you're setting yourself and your dog up for failure. So the things that you really don't want them to grab or to take, keep them out of reach. In cupboards, on high shelves. My grandparents, bless their hearts, they always had a shelf. It was quite funny. Their dog that they got when I was 4, he was called Danny, and him and I just had a really good bond. I loved that dog. We kind of grew up together. He was a puppy, I was 4, and we had a connection. Just, that's all I can say. We had a connection, and he'd often do things for me that he wouldn't do for the others, and it was always quite funny. But he was the champion of stealing stuff he shouldn't. The amount of stuff that dog stole. And he'd always run into the garden with it and initiate a game of chase. He stole glasses out of glass cases. He always would steal my grandma's ball of wool on the end of her knitting, and she'd be like, my knitting, and run off down the garden. He would steal knives off the dinner table, literally anything you can think of that dog stole, and would run off into the garden with it. And it was quite funny, really. I always thought he was just a really naughty dog, and then as I grew up and realised it's actually my grandparents being complete soft touches. But hey, that's another story for another day. So they always had, my granddad put up a shelf, and it was up in the top corner of the living room. He put a shelf up, and it was as high to the ceiling as you could get, and it was known as the Danny shelf, because it was the shelf where Danny couldn't reach. Even if he stood on the dining table and reached up, he couldn't get stuff up there. And when we went on holiday, that's where my budgie used to go on holiday to my grandparents, and he'd sit on the Danny shelf so that Danny couldn't eat him. Random memories going in here. So we had the Danny shelf, and the Danny shelf was where anything went that Danny would possibly steal. Obviously, my grandparents, we've actually just cleared out their house. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away a couple of months ago, and my gran a few years ago. So we're just going through their house. They have so much stuff lying around. It's no wonder Danny stole stuff, because there's stuff everywhere, bits and pieces, on the shelves, on the sides. It was probably a field day for him. They were people that kept stuff because one day you might need it. So, the amount of stuff that is around the house, no wonder he stole things. But the important stuff that you didn't want him to get went up on the Danny shelf. It can be simply, you keep your shoes in the porch, you keep your shoes in a cupboard. Anything that you think, I don't want them to get this, put it away, keep it away, because then you are simply avoiding a problem. And obviously we can't do this all the time, but if we are proactively avoiding a situation from happening, obviously our dog can't rehearse it and can't get better at it. Now, again, it comes down to our human brain. We have to always ask ourselves, is the item they've got dangerous or simply inconvenient? They're very, very different. If it is simply, I don't want you to have that, then we can act differently. If it is, oh my goodness, that is dangerous. I once had a client tell me their dog got the big sharp knife off the side and was running around with it. I was like, oh my goodness, that's an emergency. That is, I need to get this off my dog, and I need to get it off my dog now. If it is, they happen to have picked up your sock or your slipper, is it groundbreaking? Is it really going to make a difference that they have your slipper? For 2 seconds, 5 seconds, they're not going to chew it up and rip it up, but they will, depending on how we react. So for me, this is, as I say, I'm talking puppies here. When I have a puppy, obviously, yes, of course, I do puppy proofing. I'd pick up the things I don't want them to pick up, anything small. But to be honest, I don't mind them carrying my shoes around. One of my dog does it now. My dog's shoes are all over the house. You find socks, you find knickers, you find everything just littered around the house because the dogs have picked stuff up and carried it. I have retrievers, I expect it. But we actively encourage puppies to pick stuff up when they're little. And that sounds really daft, but think of that treasure aspect. If every time they pick something up, I take it off of them and they start to go, it's bad bringing this stuff near mum, of course, they are not going to want to. So whenever they pick something up, even if it is something I don't really want them to have, like socks, or my daughter's favourite teddy, or, things like that, I'm like, wow, what have you got? You're so clever. And I give them a bum scratch and I fuss them. I don't attempt to take the toy off them. I leave them with it and go, you are so amazing. You're so clever. If it's something like a sock, I actually will play with it with them. Because then if you think about it, bringing stuff back to me becomes valuable. Yes, I want to carry it. But if you think about like a retriever's job, for example, I talk about retrievers because obviously that's what I have, but their job is to pick stuff up and bring it back to their human and give it to them. So that's what they want to do. It's only when we interfere that goes wrong. So for me, if they pick something up, I play with it. I go, wow, what have you got? It's only a sock. It's not the end of the world. They're not going to damage a sock in 30 seconds, but they'll come over to me, I'll bum scratch, I'll make it the best thing in the world. We'll have a fabulous time playing with it. And then I swap it. Think of life as a fair exchange. If you went to, say you're going on a foreign holiday, for example, and you went to the post office and you gave them £100 and you said, I want this in euros, and they gave you €10 back. Obviously, we know the current exchange rate is not that bad. You'd be like, what? That is rubbish. They've shortchanged me here. This is no good. And you would complain and you wouldn't like it. And you'd go, I'm never going there again. But if you went and gave them £100 and you got €200 back, knowing the exchange rate is about, whatever it is currently, you'd be like, cool, winner. Amazing. I'm going to do that again. I'll go there. You want a fair exchange. And if you don't get one, naturally, you are not going to be interested. So we often think about getting stuff off of our dogs, but in fact, what we need to do is create a fair swap. So a lot of people get this part wrong because we put pressure into the situation and we hold out a handful of treats in front of our dog's nose while we're hanging onto the toy going, swap it for me. And we put a lot of pressure in that situation. They're going, no, because you really want this treasure. You're putting that in my face and it's really pressure fueled. And often what we actually need to do is just take the pressure off and go, I don't really care about your sock. I'm not interested. You keep that sock. I got loads of treats. And we can create a need to want to leave the sock to come to us one of the things I often do is just by starting placing treats on the floor away from my dog. Wow, look at this lovely pile of treats I'm creating. And after a while, my dog goes, sock or that lovely pile of treats that mum's putting over there that I might want to come and take. More often than not, after a few seconds, majority of dogs will leave that sock, go over and eat the treats. Then we slide in and snatch the toy anyway. They go, fuck, I was fooled. I maybe shouldn't say that on the podcast, should I? I'll have a beep in that point. They then go, damn, I was fooled. Next time I won't do that. So again, we quickly rush in to grab it. We're never going to be quicker than our dogs. They're always quicker than us. So what we actually then need to do is take the pressure off completely. Keep creating new piles of treats. So they're far away from that item. Get them completely interested in what you're doing. Leave the sock where it is. End with a little scatter feed or pop them in a different room because you've made it fun to be with you. Then go and pick the sock up later. There's no pressure. It's a nice, relaxed way to exchange items without having that pressure direct sort of, you will give this to me. Because most of us will know, a lot of human nature is about if someone puts pressure on you, you back up a little bit. If someone tells you you've got to do something, naturally you don't want to do it. So we put a lot of pressure into a stolen item situation where our dogs actually then recoil from that pressure and go, I don't want to do it or I'm not going to give it to you because there's so much pressure. And actually we need to just take that pressure away. So the other way we can do it is swapping like for like. And again, I find this is the same with everything. It kind of goes back to like the fair exchange, really. We've got to offer, if we want our dogs to do something, whatever it is, we've got to offer an incentive that is valuable enough compared to what we're expecting them to do. So, for example, I always liken this to things like, sitting in the house. If you ask your dog to sit in the house for a piece of kibble, they'll be like, yeah, cool, no worries. Or a dry biscuit. Outside, they're like, nah, there's too many distractions, not for a dry biscuit, that's rubbish. We've got to offer something that is worthwhile. We've got to pay them appropriately. And it's the same with stolen items. Say they've got the best stolen item in the world, and you go, here, have this really boring dry dog biscuit. They'll go, no. Or even if you've got 20 pieces of chicken, if their sort of desire to have that toy is way, 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 way more, then naturally they're not going to want it. But we can swap toys for toys. It's something we cover in our puppy courses, actually, swapping toys for toys because it's really valuable. So how we handle the situation when they've stolen stuff, I say if it's an emergency item, I would be getting in there, swapping out with treats and doing that treat game. If it's a sort of fair item like a sock, I'd just play with it. I'm like, yeah, cool, it's only a sock. Come and play with me. I've got another sock. I've got a shoe. I've got your toy. And make it a big game. We often wait until they've stolen stuff and try and get it off of them rather than actually teaching a cue that means, please, can I have what you've got? And again, we tend to try and do it when they've already got the thing. So there's already pressure. So out of the situation, practicing swapping games with legal toys, the toys they're allowed to play with, and practicing if you have this one, I have that one, and adding in cues and commentary, creating a strong association with leaving something produces something good. Then we're practicing the cue out of context so that in the context when they've stolen something, it works. I think it's a human thing. We always wait until there's a problem happening and then try and fix it and go, my leave didn't work. I asked them to leave it and they didn't. But we haven't actually practiced leave it or whatever it is you say, so that they know that skill. So a lot of sort of stealing items, I say it's just looking at the idea from your dog's perspective. It's treasure. I've been watching a thing with the kids this week about treasure hunters, and everyone wants to steal the treasure. Naturally, you protect it more because someone wants to steal it. And the same goes for our dogs. So when we've got puppies, making a game of bringing stuff back to you, making it fun, making them want to bring stuff back and not always taking that item off of them is really, really important. When you've got older dogs who it's ingrained with, then obviously it goes back to building basics of trust around those stolen items, which can take a really long time. So it's not always about how we fix a problem, it's how we prevent it in the first place. So that's where your control and management comes in. So from as early as possible, making swapping items a game. It's fun to play with you and swap these things, adding in cues as a commentary to build up the value in swapping, so that then when we want our dogs to give stuff up, they already know it's good to give things back to you. And again, having that almost, is this safe, is it not? Do I need to act for safety, or do I just play with it and make it a game to do it less pressure fueled? If your dog is already sort of further down the line, they're not a puppy and they've already got this problem, you kind of go, yeah, I probably messed it up when they're a puppy. Don't beat yourself up about it, because we only do what we know is right at the time, or what we think is right at the time. And that's obviously where, nobody gets it right. I've created situations with my dogs and gone, damn, that was my fault. I own it and go, oh, well, never mind. I'll try better next time. With certain things, like my dogs picked stuff up that I didn't realise they've skip habits that I don't realise they've picked them up, and it's really annoying, but it's me that's often created that habit. If you've already got a dog that is struggling with this, it's much harder, because obviously they've already got a skill practiced, and we do need to go back and work on it at a different level, probably with a trainer, because we've already got potentially resource guarding happening, we've already got chasing games happening, and we need to work out how to change the dynamic of that game, because again, if we carry on doing what we're doing, it's not going to work. But the one thing I would definitely say is playing the swap games. No matter how old your dog is, whether they've got a habit or not, playing the swapping games is really, really important. But it's more an opportunity to think about, well, how did this situation create, and how can I handle the situation better? So always think to yourself, the item they pick up, do I really care that they've got it? If you jump up and start running around the garden, of course they think it's an amazing game. Instead, you come to me with it, I'm not bothered, you have it. And often the sort of excitement around the item dissipates, because they go, oh, well, it didn't get what I wanted, did it? I want the game of chase, they're not doing it. It is much harder with an adult dog, which is why I'm not going to talk about it too much, other than the fact that, there's too much going on for me to sort of give advice on here, because it wouldn't be fair. But preventing the problem is always best. So for older dogs who've got an issue with items, control and management, most important thing. Get that in place first of all. Check with your brain, is this safe or inconvenient? And play loads of swapping games with your dog with legal toys. So nothing they're going to steal, their own dog toys. Let's play swapping games with it. Let's give it back to mum. Let's get the other one out. Let's do fun things together. This is a topic that's going to be covered heavily on our online program when it is ready. There's been a huge delay in it, unfortunately, because life gets in the way. But when our online hub is ready, there will be a section on all the games we can play to prevent dog stealing items, but also to start helping dogs who have got an issue with not wanting to give stuff back. But I would definitely, if you've got a puppy, play loads of games with toys, swapping. If you've got an older dog, really think about the control and management, and play swapping games too, but just be aware that your dog has already got ingrained habits, and therefore we have to look at those slightly differently. Hopefully this topic has been useful. And I say it's hard because I'd love to give so much information, but I don't think it's fair. Because, as you know, we don't really give training advice on the podcast, because every dog is so different, and what works for one isn't going to work for the other. I can give you general exercises, but the problem solving part and the tweaking it to your individual dog comes from working one-on-one or in a group setting where we can actually see what's going on. And that's where, As if you're regular listeners, you'll know we do run group classes and one-to-one in person, but we also do online coaching across the world. So wherever you are, if there's anything that you need help or support with, we can absolutely help. We work on sessions on Zoom and videos and communicating daily via WhatsApp. And it's a really nice way to almost, as I say, have a trainer in your back pocket so that you can ask every single day training advice and thoughts, topics, send videos over. It's a really nice way to work. You don't have to be in person. We learned that in COVID. You don't have to work in person with a trainer. Often online training is so much more powerful because you're relaxed. You're not in the moment with things happening. You're reflecting and then learning skills to take forward for the next time. So hopefully this topic has been useful. And if you think I should write a book on it, please do let me know, because I think it's a good topic. I'll add it to the collection. I'll say that there's only one. So we'll make a collection. If you've got any questions, you know where to find us. Drop us a message at our website, www.potterpaws.co.uk. Head over to our Facebook group, or just drop us a message, make a comment on the podcast episode. We would love to hear from you. Have a good week, and I'll catch up with you really soon. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.